All right, so our guest today, actor, writer, musician, and general funny human being, the one and only Mike O'Connell. Nope, not the wheelchair comedian. Not the hockey player. That one and only Mike O'Connell. So I just want to preface this real quick by saying that usually I like to try to remain an objective observer when we're doing this show and we're covering films. I'm just going to let you guys know right off the top here that I'm going to fail miserably at that today. I have so much respect for the work that Mike O'Connell has done. The Living Wake is, of course, my favorite film of all time, and I couldn't think of a higher moment for this show unless Bill Murray answers my message on his answering machine. But so I'm very excited today. I'll try my best to keep myself contained and composed so we can get through this interview successfully. O'Connell has worked on such films and projects as The Black Dahlia, Funny People, Patriot, which you can catch on Amazon. He's written for the show Dr. Ken, has done a whole bunch of work with Funny or Die. Your kids might even know him from a little show called Word Girl, and of course he wrote and played the lead in K Roth and Mills in the whimsically witty dark comedy that we are discussing in this episode, The Living Wake. And how are you doing today, Mr. O'Connell?
All is well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So, when I watched The Living Wake, I don't know if this is a testament to your acting or if it's because this film was written by the same gentleman that you know, and you play the lead as well. But I got a sense that there was an autobiographical aspect to this film. Maybe not the actual events, but the general idea for who K Roth and Mills is. So, how much of K Roth and Mills is Mike O'Connell?
I think a lot of the fanciful nature is in me of the man, but I think a lot of that, it was autobiographical to a point. I think there is just like certain characters from my life, but not specific, different energies, you know, like different things you run up against and different hurdles you have in life. Kind of like those were the representations of many of the characters standing in his way.
I kind of gather that too, that the characters that K. Roth comes across were kind of manifestations of things or people that you may have been dealing with, or generalized versions.
Like the mom and the brother. I do have a mom and a brother, but they're very supportive.
I didn't realize until like 4 films in that the every movie that I've done, the mom passes, and my mom approached me about that, and she said, you know, she brought it up, she pointed it out. She said, "What is your problem with me underneath it all?" Was there any conversation like that with you when your mom saw the movie?
I think that there's, you could see that. Like that scene, for example, you could see it from 2 perspectives. I'm sure my mom saw that and was like, yeah, he's a total idiot. I'm right. You know what I mean? Like, the mom was also right because the kid is crazy. So she has her own problem.
Well, I love how in the movie there's not a clear answer to, you know, you can take the mom's and the brother's word for it, for the things that they're saying about K. Roth, but at the end of the day, I felt like it's your choice to believe the mom or not, depending on, you know, who's watching the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you believe her,
some parents are. I think that was kind of about like there's people are so nervous for you to go do something kind of crazy, and even if you have the most supportive family, there's. Like when I said I'm going to go do stand-up comedy, like after college, they're like, it was supportive concern. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, well, you're running into a fire that is hot, sir. And I don't think you know the challenge of what you know, so you're kind of saying, yeah, there has to be both of those sides where somebody's like, you know, you have to be, there is an easier way. It's kind of what the mom is saying, and you are not taking it, and it really is breaking my heart.
Quick question: did you? excuse me, I'm coming down with a little what do we call that?
I don't know, but you're not 6 feet away from me, so keep it.
Oh no! I'm coming down with a little K Roth Banu.
Oh,
There you see what I did there. Boom! There you go. I need a little.
I gotcha.
See there. So yeah, Mike, thanks for joining us. I want kind of to segue from his question here. I want to know, when you wrote this, and clearly you're a writer at heart, and from what we've seen, we've done our research here, and from what we've looked at here, did you write this character specifically for you to play it, or did you want some of your experiences to be there and maybe someone else do it, or did you feel that no one else could pull this off?
It started off as something I was going to do, like as a one-man show type of situation. So it was always something I was writing for myself. And then, and as we got closer to making it, nobody kicked me out. So I think I remember somebody it's like, once you get closer to making a movie, people are like, this person will get your movie made. Do you know what I mean? Put this person in and this will help you greatly. So I'm sure if somebody at some point was like, you know what, maybe losing Mike would be smart. I don't know. Get Viggo Mortensen to play the part or something great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was not an option, but it was initially I was going to do it as kind of a stage play about a guy who had this. Basically, the K Roth character was in his mind, and he thought he was this great artist, but he was just like a postal worker, and he had a very kind of sad life, but lived a wonderful dream life in his mind.
I would say it definitely. I think we got to play off of the stage play, even at the end when you're doing the one man show. At the end, when you're the one like that.
Yeah. So that was the that it was supposed to be the whole short version of the stage thing would be. It's this guy kind of dying in a fever dream and kind of trying to claim he had achieved great things, but maybe he hadn't, or you don't know.
He was never scared. He was never scared.
Yeah, he was never scared. He tried his best, I think.
It truly is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I think maybe the closest comparison that I could possibly make would be something like Monty Python. But really, I've never seen anything like it before. And how I landed on it was, my wife and I, when we'd see anybody that we'd like on television or in a movie, we would IMDb them, figure out what else they've been in, and then just go down the rabbit hole on whatever celebrity we were checking out that week. And Jim Gaffigan was the person we IMDb'd to land on this movie. And usually when you're going that route, we got used to the person that we were initially watching the movie for to only show up as like a bit part, which that kind of happened. Jim Gaffigan plays an important role, but if you were coming for Jim Gaffigan,
you were deeply concerned after a couple minutes.
But I knew like the scene with like 7 minutes into it or so where K Roth and is having the altercation with Reginald. Oh, that's the stuff, Reggie. That whole like opening, I was like, okay, this is something special. This is something like I've never seen before. I truly don't care if Jim Gaffigan just pops up in an after credits scene. This is going to be good. I'm sure of it. And,
we were so lucky to get him. I was like, man, I started in stand up, and he's just a genius. And you're like, oh my God, this guy's gonna play my dad, and this thing is so cool.
Yeah, and the chemistry between you guys were great. But I'm wondering what was your inspiration for that story? I know you said it was initially going to be the stage production, but just the idea of K Roth, that manifestation of an artist trying to immortalize himself with his work. Where did that come from?
I think that there was like a reflection on you just like moving to LA to do stand up and stuff like that, and being like, not that I was frustrated where I was or being like I'm being ignored or anything, but it was it just made me reflect a lot on what do you do these things for, and why am I doing these things? It's like reflecting on what the background purpose of it is. And sometimes it seems like there's a very shallow reason. Sometimes there's a very deep reason. for what you choose to do. But I was just thinking of somebody who might not be the best at everything he tries to do, but he does it so hard that it's kind of beautiful. And he faces all kinds of people who want him to stop, and he just won't, because it's like not in his capacity to stop, you know.
Well, I think one of the things that me and David both identified with was the fact that with me and him both being directors, film writers, and us being photographers, things of that nature. I'm watching your film, as he clearly brought me into your film, and I'm watching it like I can identify with that feeling of me being all these things and still trying to say I'm going on this golf course of life and I need all these clubs, because having one club just isn't going to get it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and you do have to, you know, especially if you're kind of, you have such a specific idea, which the movie is also about. If you've got such a specific way of looking at the world, sometimes you're not going to get a lot of people to help out on, you know, manifesting your vision. So you kind of, it's, you know, that's why I love to play music and do all of the things and just have, you know, it only is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Can you take us behind the curtain a little bit when you talk about the actual writing process? Now, when you sat down to initially do this, did you have the whole idea in your head? Did you kind of piece it together and just start? And a follow up to that, how long did you work on the script for? And this is our Quentin Tarantino question of the day: were there any performance enhancing writing drugs involved in this process?
Oh, yes. I think. Well, I wrote the one person show or whatever. And it was like a 25-page thing. And that, I don't know what year it was, but I gave it to my friend Peter Klein, who's the co-writer on it. And so we just kind of were starting. He had been writing a screenplay with somebody else and helping them. He'd helped a bunch of people write screenplays, and we grew up together, best friends forever and forever. And so he he basically helped flush it out into a film form. And I think it was, you know, originally it was about, because we were just thinking about doing it as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And I think it was just a really eccentric guy in LA first, because it was just like, there are actually, if you live in LA, you see these people that are kind of like K Roths in a way, where you're like, there's just like this insane kind of, it would have been beautiful here as well, I think, especially the palm trees and the rickshaw would have been a nice thing to see. And then once we actually got serious about it, we had to figure out where to put it and what made sense.
Was that in the script, or is that like something that you came upon in production and thought, yeah, let's run with that? Like, did you see the rickshaw or something? Because that's one of the things that like really solidifies the absurdity of the movie, is Jesse Eisenberg riding you around on a rickshaw from scene to scene.
I think it was just like I read, you know, just the Don Quixote kind of relationship of, it's like, how do you make Sancho Panza and Don Quixote, like, how do you make that a different thing, like, instead of the horses? And it was like this weird, the ego of the character, the rickshaw is kind of perfect versus to have some guy. He's like, I have one fan and I make him drive me the around. So you're like, what if you have one fan, you should be nicer to your fan.
It's funny, when I heard you say the word eccentric, it popped me right back into your movie, because I was worried about you when Jesse's character is told the farm guy, hey, I'm very eccentric. Like, you're eccentric? I'm like, wait a minute, does eccentric mean something I don't know? I was very scared, but then I was beautifully satisfied when I saw you in the back getting the goat for dinner. So great job, guys.
I was like, yeah, well, how do you make somebody weirder than the two main characters? And then you just put roast beef in their pockets and it's done deal. He was such an amazing, weird guy.
I just thought that y'all found him on that farm itself. I thought he was literally just there.
It was like, that was security footage, actually. But he was just such a unique guy, and he had like been in the New York Ballet, you know, for 20 years. Not at that point, he's a retired ballerino, and he is just like he is so excited about this thing, and you can just, you know, there are so many people in the movie that kind of made the weirdest writing somehow feel a little either made it feel like unnerving or like Lynchian or something that made it feel so, you're like, man, so many people brought so much to the writing, and just this separate thing you could never guess would come out, you know.
I heard in an interview with the director, and his name is pronounced Soul.
Soul Tryon, yeah.
He had said that a lot of the times the actors were coming from New York to shoot in Maine, so there was only like a rehearsal the night before for what they shot. And when you see the performances that they give, like, I can't think of somebody, like, usually in a movie there's the standouts and there's at least one person that's like they must have been related to the casting director or something, but everybody in this they were so unique and special, the way they brought their characters to life.
Yeah, that was so varied, and it's just a funny kind of group of people, you know.
Even the two guys he had at the bar, like I just met them and they're coming to the wake. Like, all right, come on, you guys want to come to a wake? Let's go, man. Let's drink. Let's go.
It's a small town, that's why.
And so I read that it screened in festivals where it received plenty of awards across the board, and it went through the circuit for about 3 years from the time it was completed in 2007 to it being released to the public in 2010. Can you take us along that timeline of getting this film made from having the final draft, getting the crew together to it being available finally?
So yeah, 4 years, 2000 to 2004, we're writing the script. We have an idea to make the short film version just to create the world of what this could be. And I think it was at that point we met Soul, who was from Kennebunkport, Maine, and we go and make this short, which I think is part of the DVD. If you buy the DVD from whoever sells it, I don't know.
Amazon, you can get it on Amazon.
We made like a 10-minute short that might be online as well, but it was like the first incarnation, and it was about me moving into this boarding house, and like the boarding house that he lives in the thing. So it's just this kind of thing about him meeting how he met Mills. Mm-hmm. So we did that, and then through that we kind of got funding and just got it closer to being made. And then Soul was like, yeah, we can do this in Maine, in Kennebunkport, for very low amount of money, because I know everybody, and everybody's kind of like still has this communal feeling where they just like love to help out. And it was just really, that was inspiring to see. You know, we got so many locations for little to nothing, and people were just really supportive of a movie being made there. So we made it, took forever to edit, and I guess we premiered in 2007, I think, at Vegas. So yeah, it took a year to do the music and to finish the editing. I mean, it went from 2 hours, we cut so much stuff, and it was just kind of just super hard, you know, but it's such a specific movie. The longer it gets, kind of, it would wear. I mean, there was a 2-hour version, and it was like wearing people down. So it was, you know, what do you take out? How do you take it out? And then doing the score, which was so fun to do, but it was the challenge. And then we premiere, we got these, I don't remember their names, but so I can say they're dodgy. We got these like reps, you know, like at the Vegas Film Festival, and people are trying to sell it. People are like, no, we should get an endorsement from somebody who's famous, because Mike and Ken have this video right now. Maybe we can get Will Ferrell to get, I mean, it really got into these things where we were holding it because we were waiting on a better situation to release it in. But that slowly faded as time passed. And so it didn't come out till 2010 because of that. It's like actually just a regular, it's like everybody's like, that sucks. And you're like, no, that's just a normal movie schedule. It's that stupid and weird that it's like you can't it's not, you're not able to just cut 2 years out of the process because you don't like it.
And you do hold on to your projects because, I mean, this is, at least in anything that I've done, it's the best thing I've done yet. And there, you just have this idea in mind for what deal you're looking for, how it's going to get to the most people, and you try to hold out for that, and it's like a gamble.
Yeah, it is. And it's, but getting it out there is the most important thing, and it's, I guess, in the end, you just...
And it does have a very loyal fan base. It is an extremely polarizing film to where you either love it or loathe it.
I was like, man, my friends and myself, we really made something that, you have, I think to make a movie like that, you got to have this kind of sincere delusion that you're doing something very highly correct. And, so once it was so funny because there would be great reviews when it came out at Cinevegas, and then there were some that were just brutal. And after a while, I started realizing, I'm like, I didn't make some universal thing. We didn't make this universal thing. We made, which is, I think I had felt it so deeply that I thought it was universal or something. And it was like, but it's actually for a very specific person and a very specific mindset, which it's just so funny to read the bad reviews. Now I laugh. I think initially I was like, whoa. And because a lot of them are about how I'm such a fucking over the top ass. So.
Yeah, there. When doing the prepping for this episode, I read a lot of them on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's really one. I reached out to one of the critics because I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I was gonna have him on the episode, but the schedule didn't work out. Because I usually appreciate his reviews, but he gave this one. You can't tell what the review is. It's just it was a splat. And I immediately reached out to him, and I was like, it was Richard Probst, the independent critic, and I said, what? This is my favorite movie of all time. What's your problem with it? And we eventually got into how that's the great thing about art, that two people can see or hear the same exact thing and walk away feeling completely different.
Yeah, and it's actually basically in the movie as well. I should have remembered what the movie was about. Because I was like, hey, this is a guy that's just doing it because he does it, and that's what he has to do. It's not about a guy looking for accolades, or he's not about, you know what I mean? It ended up being, I think it's Rotten Tomatoes, it was 48 or 50 or something, or whatever. And so I was like, half the people hate it, half the people like it, that's fine.
Seems like most of the audience review, it's got like a 77% for audience, and then it drops into the 40 for critics, so they're kind of divided between, what the critics want to see and what the audience enjoys.
It's not an important thing, but it sure is funny after many years to check it out and see.
I like to liken it to a happy surprise. Like, I feel like if it would have been, I would have seen all these trailers for it and somebody blew it up for me and told me I had to see it, then I would have been let down. But if I come across it organically and I'm like, hey, what is this? It's like, whoa, why didn't I ever see this? Yeah. So it's a really happy surprise, and it's easy to, he had been telling me like forever, like, you got to watch a review. And I'm like, okay, calm down. And I see, I'm like, okay, I get it. I
didn't set the bar high at all.
I think that's the best thing about now is that, I mean, it's 15 years later, still talking about it in a positive way.
It really is timeless. Like all of the it's like a parable that can. I mean, it really can apply to any time. I mean,
yeah, that was Peter Klein, the co-writer and producer. Once we were doing it in Maine, we kind of just wanted. He was like, we should make it just timeless, and like, I think there's one car. And there's like there's nothing that resembles. It was like a storybook type of vibe, which I think was so smart, and that is something that doesn't age because it wasn't part of time anyway.
K Roth's dialect, just the way he proclaims everything. That even felt like it could be either from the past or from the future, the way he spoke. And was that like a conscious choice that you decided on early on, like how he would?
I always, like in my stand-up, I kind of had that, kind of overly well-spoken idiot type of character who has big ideas.
Yeah.
And I also just growing up, I did a lot of theater and stuff. And Richard Burton, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, is probably one of my favorite movies. And Richard Burton's one of my favorite actors. And I always thought his like Shakespearean stuff is just, you know, you could watch it in two ways, be like reverential towards the acting or be like, this is just absurd.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's an absurdity to the language and his elevation, the way he poeticizes almost anything. I just always thought that was funny. And this type of character is like, you know, as low end as he is, he's very pretentious.
Somebody really should take all of the take all of the quotes from K Roth and compile them in like a coffee table book, the musings and proverbs of K Roth Benu.
Or like a little doll you can pull, like a Pee Wee Herman doll, like K Roth doll. I get it, with a big K, has to have a K sweater on there, has to have the K sweater.
There is a community. I mean, Jesse's such a superstar and such a lovely guy, but on Tumblr there's like a big Living Wake quote receptacle and like screenshots of the closed captions, and you're like, man, and then people love Jesse, so there's this whole devotion to Mills of like when he sings If I Was Real, like the people are just like, he's so dreamy. And he's singing the song from the Living Wake. I'm like, I love that.
That's awesome.
Oh, and also one guy got a tattoo of that song on his arm, If I Was Real.
That is the highest compliment right there. No, it wasn't me.
I'm looking to see if it's him. I'm trying to see if he has this tattoo.
No, if I got any tattoo, it'd be 733, just somewhere.
Let it get out.
So through the entire process, from the point that you have the idea in your head, filming it, seeing the final result, I know with independent filming, with production budget limitations, things like that, sometimes compromises can be made along the way. Sometimes they result in a better than what you imagined. Sometimes you wish that it could have went the other way. But could you, like, how close does the final product resemble what was in your head when you started writing?
I mean, I think we just overwrote the out of it, and it's like a very talky movie already. And then we had so many scenes we had to cut. There was like a whole introduction at the boarding house, which was like this beautiful, just a beautiful place, like this old time mansion that's the movie starts in. But I would go into these other rooms and talk to the people that would be at the wake later on, inviting them. And so we had to cut like that, where there were some really funny performances. This guy that played the landlord was just so funny. And he just hated K Roth Benu because he's such a menace. And so he yells at him right before he goes to see him. And then at the end, he's at the Living Wake, and there's a callback, which I think was like criminal to cut out. I actually probably yelled at somebody because I was like, if you cut this joke, you're just killing the whole movie. Something that extreme. But at the end, because he's so rude to K Roth, and then after K Roth passes away, spoiler alert, he comes up to the casket, and he goes, I'm sorry, K Roth, you know what? I'm thinking of going back to school and becoming a dental assistant. And then he just walks away. And I thought it would just have been so funny, because you see this guy so mad at the beginning, so cruel, and he just decides to change his life and become a dental assistant. And I was like, how could you not put that in the fucking movie?
Yeah, it fits perfectly.
I showed the movie to my dad before we had finished, and that was in it. And then the next version, it was cut out. He's like, where's the fucking dental assistant line? I was like,
That's funny. So similar senses of humor.
so yeah, no, that you had to cut so much. But there's, I think if you make something so specific that there's not a lot of cutting around the energy of the thing. You're just cutting things out, but everything was in the same weird spirit. So in the end, I feel like we're all very happy with how it came out.
Very cool.
All right. Quick question. I wanted to segue. You were talking about the budget before. We digging into the film, we were able to figure out the budget was about 500,000, and well, at least according to IMDb, and we can always trust them, right? And with that being said, definitely still impressive according to Hollywood standards. Let me ask you this: can you tell us you spoke to it earlier, the process of getting a film like this done on that budget, with still having people flying in, going back and forth, your heads getting cut off, running around like chickens? What was the process trying to get this thing done?
It was long, and it was not a well-paid job. We just, we took a lot, we sacrificed a lot on our end, like Sol, Peter, Amy, Chad, and, it became our lives for quite a bit of time. And also everybody kind of just used all of the people they knew, and, people who have friends of friends who just read the script, and we had the package, and we had like the short film and all of this stuff, all of my stand-up, and like all, who I've worked with and all this stuff, trying to sell it. And people, just got it together, and it just went so quickly because it's so unpredictable. And I think we just got this weird momentum, and then everyone's like, this is not going to not happen. This is not going to not happen. So if you, I think if like 5 or 10 people think something's not going to not happen, that powers through a lot of missing money. And, like if you're low on money, somebody goes and figures it out. You become so weirdly creative, and when you just really need to make this happen. And at a certain point, it's too difficult to stop the train. So you have to figure out these kind of harebrained schemes to figure, to get done.
Yeah, it's definitely a commitment to jump into a feature. I know a few people that have started one, gotten 75% through it, maybe even gotten through production, and have been sitting in post for years. And I just never understood. It's not a choice when you call action on the first scene that you're not going to do the martini shot and get it completed for everybody that gave their time.
But then also there's so many other, it's like that being an enormous feat. After that, the pitfalls can be so many.
Yeah.
So this was your first time, at least again according to IMDb, producing and writing a feature, and it was also Sol Trine's directorial debut. How did that collaboration come to be, and was there ever a point where you considered directing it as well? Pause that. Just wanted to pause the interview real quickly because I actually reached out to director Sol Trine to be a part of this episode. It's totally on me that he's not here. I gave him like 24 hours notice because I was so stoked to get Mike O'Connell for the episode. I didn't think until like the day before that it would be cool to maybe have the director on as well. So there was, because of that short notice, there was a little bit of a conflict. He's in pre-production right now, but I gave Sol the same question that I gave Mike as far as what it was like collaborating, and Sol did send in this response to that question. I'll go ahead and just read it here. So he says, working with Mike was a fantastic adventure. He's such a creative force of nature that it always provides an ample source of energy for anyone he collaborates with. My goal with him was to harness that energy and talent in a way that could create true and honest emotional connections with the other actors and the audience. I wanted to create a setting that housed this outrageous character of K Roth and provided a beauty that mirrored his inner perspective on the world. I'd like to think that we had a very fluid collaboration with a lot of freedom to explore what we collectively felt was the best solution for any given situation. Mike, Peter Klein, and myself just fully dove into the process and embraced everything that came our way. We always knew we were making something that was incredibly unique, and our collective talents and abilities were going to be completely necessary in order to make it successful. I can honestly say that it was the most enjoyable and personally rewarding creative experience I have had. So there you go. Thank you very much, Sol, for getting back to me on that. Sorry we couldn't have you on this episode and that the schedule didn't work out. I hope we can have you on for something in the future. Let's get back to the interview. How did that collaboration come to be, and was there ever a point where you considered directing it as well, or is that something that you ever wanted?
I think that I was already doing so much, and I just was not, that was never really an ambition of mine, is to do, I don't, like to control the entire thing. We would just wanted somebody proficient and professional, and Soul had just worked, he had produced so many things before this, and he just knew the independent film world better than we ever did. Peter and I think Peter was writing something with another director, and I mean, I was just kind of a drunk stand-up, so we'd be like, it would be a hard sell for us to figure that shit out. And so it was this nice combination of various skills.
What was that collaboration like? Is I know on like a lot of sets, it's different from set to set, where how clear cut those lines and roles are. And I know that I watched an interview with you on, I think it was Access Entertainment or something like that, where you said that you met Soul in the making the movie, but there was so much leading up to making the movie. You guys were pretty much solid friends, but by the time you were shooting, so you're on set, and of course you wrote these lines and you're playing the lead, but he's tasked with getting the blocking, finding the shot, and I saw that he said that there was some a little bit of improvisation within the production, more so in just the blocking and how things would play out, not so much the lines. But how did that collaboration go between you guys as far as putting the film together, like from day to day?
It was great. I mean, and Peter, he was very important in just like the look and the feel, and just us having written it and being like so intimate with what we'd written for so long. I mean, we knew it backwards and forwards. So I think when you have to make those changes, it was so good that Soul was understanding that it's not like we were equal players, in that he had so much to do and he was so proficient at the technical stuff that we have no clue about. And so I think we all had our very kind of specific weird jobs that were fit together like a puzzle.
And even following up on what David said about it, as far as there being some improvisation with of course, the blocking and things of that nature. When it came to the script, I know me and him always joke about, you have whose line is it anyway, and but on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, they always there's no improvisation. You think there is. So I'm going to tell you, I was super impressed with the dialogue in this film. I'm talking about, it made me feel like I was watching Clue, Barney Stinson, everybody wrapped into one. So first off, hats off to you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem. Was there any improvisation when it came to now he has me doing it, when it came to the actual script? Did you guys stick straight to it?
There was very little. I think that we were so open to the way they were saying the lines, but I think that when something's so, it's so off the norm of dialogue, it's more like play dialogue. And I think that a lot of the actors just were like, this is the world, like this is obviously not 2005. So I think that helped, because people just knew that it was a fantasy world, and it wasn't like, I'm going to come in here and make them laugh. Where I've seen people, I've been on sets where, people are just improvising so much, and then you look at the director or the producer, you're like, yeah. But it can be, especially I think that once if you're improvising in a completely fabricated world, it's like, how could you do that when you don't understand the
Right.
philosophies of this place? Yeah. So I think most people were very, very, they just said the lines brilliantly. We were like, and it was just like, it was really lovely to see. There was a funny improv. It wasn't improv in the scene, but when we were filming the mother brother scene at this really fancy, beautiful house, I was outside waiting for the scene to go, just looking at my lines and stuff. And the guy who played my brother, he he comes out and he was this really kind of intense dude, and you know, New York actor, just very kind of an intense dude, but lovely and very funny and ridiculous. And so he comes out and he goes, "Hey, Mike, I've decided the brother drinks." And he pulls out a flask and he just takes a sip. And I was like, oh my God, the guy's, he knows I'm like the producer of the movie. It's so interesting that the guy, he was such an actor that he's like, I've done some backstory on my character, and he's an alcoholic who drinks all day.
That's awesome. And then
I mean, that's kind of a rude story to tell, but it made me laugh. I was like, I'm not gonna fire the guy, but it was bold as because he can't.
I decided I drink.
And how do you really respond to that? Because you don't want to squelch somebody's such commitment to character.
No way the guy's not doing the scene. I mean, you know what I mean. If we changed something, it would cost money, and it was just not. You know, like the guy could have had a needle in his arm, and we would have done the scene. It just made me laugh what people kind of say, what people do, and blame it on acting.
Yeah.
Those guys just didn't really get me, man. They didn't get where I was. I'm a method actor, damn it.
That's exactly what he was. And I was like, all right, well. And then he nailed the scene. I go, I guess the brother is a drunk. I guess he does drink.
That's awesome. The relationship between K Roth and Mills is easily one of the most interesting aspects of the movie. The dynamic between the two of them, kind of pick up on like a codependency that is so interesting to watch. And like Mills he serves what normally would be like the straight man for the crazy eccentric character, but even at times you're like, is he a reliable straight man? Because he seems like he is right, he's almost encouraging it subtly, but through support, and kind of enjoying it in his own weird way. But so did you have Jesse in mind for that role when you wrote that?
No, we didn't. I mean, we had known Jesse from Roger Dodger, but just from seeing it, and we had never even thought of it, and we didn't know who Mills would be. I think the funniest person we asked was Pee Wee Herman, Paul, which would have been ridiculous.
The Rubes? You got the Rubes coming out?
And that's when I was like, just have him play K Roth. Jesus, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I think there were a couple other, maybe which, trying to get in touch with like Paul Dano and like people like that. And the casting director, I think she cast Jesse and Roger Dodger. So she knew him and sent him the script, and he read it, and he was like, I want in.
The chemistry between you guys felt so natural. Was that something that was like cultivated, or was it instant? We
met in New York like maybe a month before, 2 months before. I mean, I think we got pushed a month, so we had to live in the backyard in like a tent for 4 weeks. It was so weird. Anyway, we met somewhere in New York and had some drinks and stuff, and we just laughed. And he's such a smart, funny guy who has such a unique sense of humor himself. And I think he responded to the writing. And once we met, it was like, this would be perfect because he has this. He's super understated, and I think he's just like so knowledgeable of kind of, I don't know, it's like he was a vaudeville guy or something in the movie, and it's like the way even his physicality is. I'm just always impressed with his acting, but then once you start acting with him, you're like, I gotta be a better actor.
Let me ask you this: knowing where this started from the beginning and then seeing it play out on screen, what was your favorite scene, either to film or just to watch as a fan of the film?
I really liked personally. I liked seeing the musical number, because I was like, we did a musical number. I love it. I mean, there's a couple, obviously there's a couple things, but that one to me especially was like, to make kind of the one time he's reflective be a song I thought was a coup. And we got this graveyard for free, like right by that. You're like, what the is this? It's like coming together. We had a steady cam guy who like broke his back and following me around because I kept up the mouthing. And that was great. And then, oh, you know what? It's like, and she's in Handmaid's Tale. She plays the librarian, like for some reason. And for some reason, that scene, she was so good that she actually made me feel bad when I was supposed to be trying to make her feel bad. And I'm like, oh my God, when you work with, she just communicated exactly what, you know what I mean? It's like she dug into our minds and got the meaning of the thing.
Anybody else would have probably just read that on the page and be like, okay, I'm annoyed and frustrated with this person, but you.
Oh no, yeah, it would have been a very one, like it was so three-dimensional that you're like, why don't we follow this character for the rest of the movie?
You do realize, had you picked up the books off the floor that you just flung on the floor, she would have had no idea where you put your books at, and everything would have been fine. But K Roth's not about picking up other books. Who cares?
What a prick this guy is, But and then I think that watching it, I love Jack's Pants, the Jesse reading Jack's Pants, because I think that made me laugh so hard. And the way Jesse, and talk about a good performance, is where he really could be. I mean, he just is like so innocent, such a child. I just love it.
Yeah. And that's just another moment that speaks to his loyalty to K Roth, that he sees the despair that K Roth is in that moment. It's like, I will step in.
I will amuse you by letting you perform.
I got my blanket.
The blanket came in like 2 seconds. He pulled it out of nowhere. Like, I got a blanket. I'm like, why are you carrying around a blanket for stories?
And then the way that the person, the board for the library just so happens to show up in time to deny it.
We were like, oh, okay, this is getting so British. Like, this is getting so Monty Python. But that's another thing that, like, Jesse just totally understood was, like, that's another scene that I love him in, is the picnic with the old man when he's playing the waiter. I just think that in his monologue, like, all the shit, and I do stand up, and I've been in movies that are, doing a modern comedy, as you said, like a lot of those performances could go off the rails and just be really kind of trying to be funny. But there's this element of Jesse's like, I'm not trying to be funny. It's like, this is a serious endeavor we're involved in. And when he does his monologue, I'm like, I just cried. I was like, dude, that is the best that could be done by anybody. So
I think my favorite moment and my favorite scene is the Liquor Smith scene, just because the absurdity is so ramped up, just in the fact that it's such a stupid bet for the Liquor Smith to take. Like, the odds are so much in your favor, and he's putting so much on the line. And it seems like this happens. It seems like it happens on, like, this isn't the first time. Like, this is like a running thing that K Roth comes in.
He's a manipulator of small-minded people.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So I don't want to spoil anything for the viewers in the interview, so I won't say what happens at the end. I just want to speak on what I felt about the ending. That this is a timeless place where things vaguely resemble reality, but are slightly off. And to me, it feels like what's happening isn't actually, like, not to quote Trump, but the things you are seeing are not actually happening. I feel like everything was kind of like an allegory or a parable, or things were representations for ideas or struggles, like an existential parable of some kind. I don't want any definitive answers, because that's what makes the movie so great to me, and I want other people to appreciate it for the same reason, that the obscurity of it, I guess, or walking away with your own theories. But what would your response be to that without giving too much away?
I think that it's definitely from, I mean, for all we know, he could be in 2005, you know, like maybe he's seeing that, you know, this is like a Walter Mitty type of situation where you're creating a reality around you. I would say it started with a guy who imagined it all. So I think that there is a fancifulness to it that makes it, it seems like this guy's created a reality, and it's about creating a reality. So that was always a big argument of what to do at the end. You never know what, how to end it. And something like that is really, you have a couple options, you know? So we kind of kept it open in our heads because we didn't want to bog it down with the idea that we knew he was going to the living wake. We didn't know what would be happening at the end.
And it really does feel like everybody, all of the supporting characters in it are not supporting characters to Mike O'Connell. They're supporting characters in a role that K Roth Benu created, in a world that he created, and that's I think that's where that feeling comes from.
They're all kind of arch as well, so they're representations of various parts of society and things like that, for sure. Especially those library people, those library gods.
Oh, I love that part. Trust me, I love the part where the two black characters show up and they're the board. Nobody says anything about it. They just happen to show up and they are the board. Dude's like, hey man, pick a genre. But at the same, like, so I love that part. To me, that was amazing.
You haven't made a damn decision in your life if the options are given to you by somebody else.
So very well spoken on that. Let me ask you this: with all the stuff you've done between the writing and, of course, you've made impressive contributions when it comes to acting, writing, and producing all the projects that you've done. Let me ask you this: out of the things that you worked on that brought people, of course, to the living wake, of course, you can find it again on Amazon if you guys need to find it or whatnot. With all the great comedians, writers, and artists that you've worked with, can you think of your favorite, and I know we're putting you on the spot, but can you think of your favorite memory from any project that you worked on that just stands out above the rest?
I did What's It Gonna Be, which is that song that was on YouTube, and that got popular, and I started writing a movie about that, and we were gonna make this movie. Didn't work out, but whatever. But because of that, I got to do this Judd Apatow, a bunch of shows with Judd Apatow and all the people that were going to be doing Funny People. So one night at the UCB in Hollywood, California, I was going up with Ken, and Adam Sandler was there. And Adam Sandler, growing up, to me was like, just, there was no better than him to me, because I do music, comedy, and stuff like that. So he just was my hero. And just doing this absurd, overly sexual video led me to meet this guy, and I got to tell him how much he meant to me, and it was a very beautiful moment for me. So I think that that's something like that, where you're like, how did that lead to that? And, you know, and again, meeting Steve Conrad from Patriot, the director, writer of Patriot, he saw The Living Wake, and he was a judge in the Chicago Film Festival, and The Living Wake got in, and he said he was watching all these movies and kind of tuning out, and then he heard The Living Wake, and he heard me rambling about something, and he's like, what the is that? And he went and watched it, and he kept watching it, and he's like, well, obviously this is going to win, because there's never been anything this good. And he loved it so much. And so through that, and then the best part of the story is he goes into the meeting the next day and everybody's supposed to be breaking down which one's going to win. And Steve's like, well, obviously everyone's going to say The Living Wake. And nobody said The Living Wake except for him. And we did not win. But what do you win? You won if you got to make it. And so after that, I got to meet Steve, and we became great friends. And then I started working on his projects and still work on them. So it was just like, it's a friend, a good friend that enjoys that movie, because I think they understand the kind of my eccentricity and and as you said, the fans are a very unique group of people that are like, they have like beautiful ways of thinking, and I think that is always, it's always a plus if you understand Living Wake to me.
Yeah, there are certain films out there where they have the power to tell you something about somebody just by the fact that they like it or not. And Living Wake is definitely one of them. And I noticed and you mentioned that you do music as well. That I wanted to do a quick sidebar before we finish this thing up. Can you tell us about the Sad Songs to Get Sad To album and what the inspiration for that was?
I don't know. Growing up, I was so addicted to like love songs and sad songs, and I just would walk around with my yellow Sony Walkman and just walk around the block crying for no reason to like Rolling Stone songs and shit. So I always loved a sad song, and I just started compiling them after heartbreaks and whatnot, and I just wanted to make a whole album, and it was such a great experience. I finished it, and I brought it to my friend who works in the music industry, and he goes, "Mike, your album's great. As long as you don't expect to make any money off of it, you should be fine."
So it's great. It's just fiscally poor. Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, I got you.
It made me laugh so hard. I was like, and now I still gotta buy you a drink for meeting with me? This is fucking bullshit. He goes, it was such a gentle way to say that nobody makes money in music. You know, as long as you're fine, just having finished it. And I was like, yeah, you know, I am. I wasn't expecting to be the middle-aged chubby Taylor Swift of my generation.
I know you wrote and composed the songs and performed the songs for Living Wake, and I mean, Dressed for Death is such an awesome, I can't think of a better climax to a movie than, like, it's up there with, like, Dirty Dancing when she jumps off the stage and he catches her. Like, it's the moment that he looks at his mom and says, I can't remember the exact line right now, but you think that it's something,
you know,
this is, wait till you see the finale. Yeah, that was such a, I mean, that was such a love send-off for all of the, like, it was the mega told you so for all of the artists out there that have been squelched in any way by anybody.
Yeah, no, that was, we didn't have the song until about a month before we started shooting, and there was just supposed to be, which was like, man, I was glad I came up with that song, and that I think Peter came up with the title, and then I had come up with just the music, and it really added an element that we were just so happy to see. And it was so hard to edit because the band was actually there, and so they weren't playing to a click track, and they weren't playing to. It was just like literally an editor's nightmare. And then I had to sing to this track that was not, you know, it was just, we did it exactly the wrong way, but it ended up great.
Yeah, it came together. Great.
I would have many, many, many different ways I would do it after that.
All right, let me ask you this. Of course, then this, like, we're wrapping this up. Of course, we're going to let people know where they can find The Living Wake. It's still on Amazon. Of course, I've already purchased it, so it's in my digital collection now. So I definitely do have that. Other than that, where can people find you nowadays? What are you working on? And like I said, if they need to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I've just been doing more. I produced Ken Jung, who's like a good friend and I've worked with over the years. I actually produced part of his game show on Fox. I Can See Your Voice, 9 o'clock Central on Fox on Wednesdays. And I've just been working with friends on different things, and nothing really to report. But yeah, check out Sad Songs to Get Sad To. It's on all of the music platforms.
Yo, Mike, I could talk to you all day about The Living Wake, and I won't do that, though, for the sake of my having to get this edited before Thursday, and I'm sure you have things that you've got to get to. But this has
been... it was fun to talk about. Thank you.
Well, however you felt when you met Adam Sandler, that's me. That's me now.
Oh well, I really appreciate it. I'm
His
so
left
glad you
nipple is
enjoy
going
it.
hard. If you cannot see it, his
I
left nipple is
know.
coming out through the shirt.
So
I'm
thank you
super
very,
happy.
very much.
Super happy to talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Have a lovely day. Bye bye.
Find us in all these links. It's coming up right now.